Western social media versus their Japanese are so different. The Western, I feel there's more pressure on social branding. So everyone has either their first or last name, like very like celebrity Hollywood-esque style first or last name. It's very like it's their identity and their brand. Right. Whereas my Japanese students, it's gonna be like Saya with like 5 A's and then like 1993, like the year they were born.
Oh my god.
Do you know what I mean? It's just like
yes.
It's so different, but it's so like there's no right or wrong, and they're both displaying like too much information in my opinion. Like I'm like, how do you put your government name on the internet? But then also these girls, I'm like, why would you put your full birthday?
It's so funny that Instagram, even in Japan, Instagram, how people title their profile is different. Like you're saying,
めっちゃ違う。
違う. Like I know multiple Japanese people. It's so hard to find their name because I'm like, oh, like this person, I think it was like their birth year 1985, so I'm like trying to search it,
or it's like Mayu, but then you're like, oh, you decide to use zeros instead, or like it's just like a whole other universe.
Sometimes it's like a underscore 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 one underscore underscore, so I'm like, oh my god. I think is it to reduce searchability? Probably some of it is like anonymity.
I think it's that. I think it's anonymity, and I think it's also just like there's less pressure to brand yourself like create your own personal brand in Japan. So the other thing is, once you find that Instagram account, most of it's like a Starbucks cup or like just like a fourth of a flower, and I'm like,
it's so aesthetic.
Are you Mayu from last week or 3 weeks ago? Like, I don't know. So
they're going for the aesthetic. It's almost like that on dating apps though, like Tinder. It's very similar where I've gone over this before, but it's like the back of someone's head or a cup of coffee, and you're like, I think this is a woman.
I was talking to like my Japanese guy friends about this. I was like, why does that appeal to you? And they're like, it's kind of fun to look at it and think to yourself like, okay, I wonder why she decided to put this sake brand cup in the photo. Or like, oh, I wonder why she decided to like do this. Or like, oh, she must like, if she took a photo of like, because sometimes like just the eyes, and I'm like, what are you gonna do with that? They're like, well, it just must mean that's her charm point. And I'm like,
wow.
Whoa.
It's the mystery factor that people go for.
Yeah, I guess.
It's more like Love is Blind. It's like Tinder in Japan is just Love is Blind. Bring it back to pole though. So your pole students obviously are a little more, are they more private about them doing pole?
Well, I think even in the West, I think some girls can feel a little bit nervous about posting pole because it's a relatively new sport, new art form, and so I think it can be judged or misconstrued. And so a lot of people have separate pole profiles so they have like their day-to-day one, and then they have like, I don't know, Tammy pole or whatever it is. In Japan and the West, I feel like what they post is different in terms of aesthetically what they find to be the most appealing to their goal. So I feel like my Japanese students, they do more sweet, cutesy stuff. Okay, so for example, like one thing I teach very beginner heels class, where the first thing you learn is putting on the shoes, and then if the pole is here, you do just walking, circling around it, just walking. And with that, I try to get them to be like, okay, like think about what aesthetic you want to go for. If you're trying to like be sultry and like, you know, like J-Lo hustlers, and it's like, you know, like running your hands up your body, playing with your hair, and then I say, you know,
どういう風に説明するの? Like こういうイメージでどういう風に
like my students just don't know me, but I'm like, if you want like bad B, なんかちょっとバッド B で行きたかったらこういうI don't know how
バッド B みんなバッド B 知ってんの?
まあでもなんかわかるっしょ。それでだ、or まあちょっと可愛い系で行きたかったら、この辺でちょっとキュートポージング。みんなこっち。
みんなこっち。
日本人みんなこっち。
こっちって何？その
このなんかキュート系。
何？髪の毛をこういう風にこうパって。
パーとか、ちょっとなんか顔。
でもやっぱでもこれやってるとめっちゃ日本人っぽいっていう風に
見える今。ちょっと見えた。
やっぱいやそうそう。エレガントっていうかいやでも日本人なんだけどね
ね
日本人なんだけどまあ that's like another thing about being bicultural. It's like you can take on a demeanor of each different, like whether you want to be Western or more Japanese looking.
But recently, I've been feeling so Western, Max, because I started taking Nihonbuyo lessons, traditional Japanese dance. I feel so Western because I think it goes against everything my body wants it to do.
What does that mean? Nihonbuyo is not like, I mean, it's どういうこと?
It's subtle. I'm not subtle. It's subtle. So it's like, for example, when you walk, you don't want any movement. I'm like, what is that? How do you walk? No movement. But you want to stay completely flat and try to walk forward like this. And so where that aesthetic comes from is like very subtle neck movements. And it's just very like small and everything's inward. So when you turn and stuff too, you're like, my teacher always says like shiboru, like imagine like twisting a towel. So everything's just twist in, going tiny and in, and like just like having your neck come out or whatever. But I grew up doing ballet, which is all about extend. And so it completely changed how I teach my pole lessons, because I think for me, having a Western background, doing things like a body wave or whatever makes sense to me, because I've grown up doing it, or I've like seen music videos where people do it, so like visually I kind of understand what the goal is. But with Nihonbuyo, I just haven't been exposed to it. So sometimes she'll explain to me all these like theories, like the towel theory, and I'm like, what does that mean? And so it's kind of changed, like I'm trying to be better at breaking down
the towel theory.
Yeah, the towel theory.
Yeah, but
shiboru.
It's also like the neck is supposed to be very sexy in Japan. Obviously, the before, like years ago, like hundreds of years ago, right? The unajiが一番 like チャームポイントだったっていうか.
Yeah.
Like, did you have to hide it? I can't remember.
I think it was just more like because your body is so covered with the traditional kimono, any little subtle areas where you can see skin is.
So it's just the neck.
Yeah.
So it's like, damn, she got a nice neck.
She got a nice neck.